Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel today. I'm very happy to have you here. Today I am in my dining room and I am going to show you how to make lace curtains. You can see the curtains that are hanging up behind me, and they are lace curtains that I made. You've probably seen them if you've seen any of my other home tour videos and things like that. I found this lace at a fabric store that was going out of business, so it was on sale, and I went ahead and bought all of the lace that was on the bolt because I knew that I wanted to make some lace curtains for my house. I was not sure which room I wanted to use them in, but recently we've been doing some work on our house. We've done some work in our dining room. We repainted and did a few other things in here, and so I decided that I wanted to use that lace to make curtains for this room. So that's what I did, and today I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. And so I'm going to give you tips for working with lace if you want to sew with lace, because it is different than sewing just with regular, cotton fabric or something like that. So I'm going to give you the tips to make it easier, but also the instructions for actually making the curtains would be the same no matter what type of fabric you were using. So if you're not really interested in making lace curtains for your house, but you would like to make another type of curtain for your house, you can use these same instructions to do that, because it would be the same. And I just want to say that making curtains is very easy. There's really nothing hard about it. All you have to do is sew a straight line with your sewing machine, which I know for a lot of people that can be intimidating in itself. So anyway, I'm going to show you my little trick that makes sewing a straight line really easy when we get to that point. I hope that if this is something you want to do, that you'll grab your sewing machine and get you some fabric and make some curtains for your house. Okay, so the first thing you need to do before you even get started cutting out or anything is you need to decide the total length that you want your curtain to be, all the way from the bottom to the top, whether you want it to be full length or the length of your window or whatever it is. You need to measure that finished length. Then you're going to go back and you're going to add for your hem. So for instance, if you want to have a 3-inch hem, if you have enough fabric, it's best to do a double hem, which would mean you would add 6 inches and then you would turn 3 of those inches under. That'll just give a little bit more weight to your curtain. That's a good idea whether you're using lace or a different type of fabric. And then at the top, you're going to have to turn under a certain amount to make a rod pocket. So you're going to determine that by what size your rod is, and then also whether you want to leave a little part sticking up above your rod like this, which is like a little header. So you're going to take your finished length that you want your curtain to be, you're going to add to that the amount for your hem, and then you're going to add the amount you need to turn back for your rod pocket. So for instance, if you are going to put a 1-inch little header at the top, and then you're going to make a 2-inch pocket, you're going to need 3 extra inches of fabric. And then you'll need a little bit more so that you have room to sew it. So you're going to need 3.5 to 4 inches to turn under in order to be able to make your little header, make your rod pocket, and all of that. So that's how you determine the cut length of your fabric. It's going to be your finished length plus what you need to add for your hem and what you need to add for that part at the top. And then we're going to talk a little bit about pattern repeats, because this is the other thing that will change the length of them. And most lace has some type of pattern, but they're not all really noticeable. Some of them are more of an all-over design. Now this one has, you can see those little swirls and that flower. So this has a definite design that you can see a pattern, and it has a repeat because we go up here, there's another row of those. So if you're only making one panel, it doesn't really matter a whole lot, but like in this room, I have 3 of these because there are two more over there and those are right next to each other. So it's really important for them to match up. And then this one. So when I cut these out, I want the pattern to start in the same place with each one so that they'll all be the same in the room. They'll all match and they'll be consistent with where those little rows of flowers are. So if you look at this, you can see that the repeat from the top of that flower to the top of this flower is about 8 1/4 inches. And so that is going to tell you that unless that falls out exactly even when you figure out the length that your curtain is going to be, then you're going to have to adjust for that when you're cutting them out to have all of your repeats line up the same way. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute. I had to lay both of my cardboard cutting boards down on my kitchen floor in order to get a space that was long enough to cut these lace panels out because they're pretty long. So the first thing I did when I started taking my fabric off the bolt is I took pins and pinned it all the way along the selvage edge, and that's because lace is pretty slippery, and so I wanted to be able to hold it together as I laid it out on the cardboard cutting boards and not have to fight with it just getting all messed up from being so slippery. So that is a tip for using a slippery fabric like that, is just to go ahead and pin the selvage edge together. And the other thing I did, which I don't really show in the video, but I used pins and I marked the right side of the lace at the top of each panel, because another thing with lace is that sometimes you can kind of get confused about which side is the right side and which is the wrong side. And so while the fabric was coming off the bolt, I went ahead and marked that, and then that way I knew that I wouldn't get confused about which was the right and which was the wrong side. And like I said, I did it at the very top. And so then I also didn't have to keep looking to see where the top and where the bottom was, because sometimes all that stuff can just get confusing to you. Okay, so after getting it all straight, we went ahead and measured. I had to get my son to help me do that because, like I said, these were pretty long panels. Went ahead and measured them, and then I'm going to use the lines that are on the cutting board to cut them. And also I lined up that selvage edge with a line on the cutting board too, in order to keep it all straight. So now I'm getting ready to cut the second panel, and what I did is I just left the first one laying down there because with the lace, since you can see through it, it's easy to find your pattern repeat by just laying the one panel on top of the other one and then matching those flowers up, or whatever part of the design you choose to match up. So I told you earlier that I was going to show you an easy way to make sure they were all going to be straight. And this is it. By laying the second panel on top of the first one, I'm going to match up the design, and then I'm going to go back and just trim off of the top the part that I don't need. And that's going to be the part that you lose because of the pattern repeat. And then the pattern will match up for the whole rest of the length of the panel. And so I'll cut this panel. The cut will actually be longer because I'm cutting some off of the top of it. But that's the way you need to do it in order to get your design to line up on all your panels. So I'll do that on this one, and then I'll do that on the next one too. And then all 3 of the panels that are going to be in that room will have the pattern lined up on them. So I got it all lined up now, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this little piece. You can see I'm turning it back right there. I'm going to cut that little piece off, and then they, like I said, they'll be matched up, the pattern repeatably matched, and then I will do that with the next panel also, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next step. Okay, the next step that we're going to do is to press down the amount we're going to turn back to make that rod pocket at the top. And so I am going to measure and turn back 4 inches, and that's because I'm leaving that 1 inch header at the top above the rod pocket. And then I'm going to make a pretty big rod pocket there because I'm not sure if I'm going to be using just a regular little curtain rod or if I'm going to get something more decorative that's bigger. So I just wanted to go ahead and get these curtains made before I had a chance to go to the store and buy rods. So in order to do that, I just went ahead and made a really big rod pocket. So I'm turning it back 4 inches, and that will leave a little bit at the bottom to sew it in. One thing that I did on these lace panels is that I didn't finish this raw cut edge of the lace. Like if this would be regular fabric, I would have serged this on my serger or zigzagged it or something like that to keep it from fraying. But lace doesn't really fray like that, so I just left my cut edges like they were. And so that makes this a lot easier than if you're sewing with regular fabric and you do need to finish all those edges so that they won't ravel out. So the other thing that makes sewing with lace easy too is that you can leave the selvage edge as the edge of your curtain, and you don't have to hem the sides. So if you are using a different type of fabric, you'll need to also finish the sides of your fabric with the serger or a zigzag stitch or something like that, and then you'll have to turn it under and hem it so that you have a finished side hem. But for the lace curtains, you can just use the selvage. When they're hanging up, you can't tell that that's what it is because of the whole nature of the lace. So those are 2 tips for saving some time. Is you don't have to hem the sides, and you don't have to finish the edges where you cut the lace. Okay, now I'm going to show you my trick for making straight lines really easy. And what I'm doing is I'm getting ready to sew my top of my curtain, the rod pocket and everything. And I'm measuring 1 inch from the needle over because that's what I need it to be. That's where I need to sew my first stitching line to make that little 1 inch header. So I measured from the needle over 1 inch, and I put the blue painter's tape right in that spot. So now when I get my fabric up here, which it's already pressed in place and it's hemmed, it's pinned, it's not hemmed, it's pinned. and I'm going to go ahead and line it up with the edge of the fabric, the top edge right along that blue tape, and then I'm going to stitch. And you should always start and do a little back stitch when you get started there to lock your threads in place. And that's what I'm doing here. And then now, as long as I keep that fabric edge along that blue tape, it's going to sew a straight line. So it's really super easy to get that straight line that's exactly 1 inch from the top of the fabric, which is what I need to begin with there. Your sewing machine does have little marks, but it's a lot easier to see that big line of blue tape, and the longer it is, it's easier to keep it lined up with it too. You just have more area there to keep it lined up. So this would be for, you know, making any kind of curtains. You can use the tape method on the machine to help you get that straight line. And I'll show you how to move on to the next ones in just a minute. Okay, so now I finished on the first line, and so I'm measuring from that line the distance that I want my rod pocket to be, and then I line that up with my needle so it's ready to stitch, and I'm going to place my blue tape at that point now. So if I guide my fabric along that blue tape, I'm now making the rod pocket in my curtain, and I'm making that perfectly straight line that'll stay even all the way. So that is the next way to make your straight line using the tape. Okay, so here's the hem that I was telling you about. I pressed in already. I turned my fabric up 6 inches, and then I turned it under again 3 inches. So I get that double 3-inch hem, which, like I said, it gives you some weight to your curtain. It just helps it hang better. So I folded that up and pressed it the same way that I did the top of the curtain before, and then I pinned it in place, and so that makes it really easy to stitch. Now for this one, I don't really need to use the tape because I'm using the top of the hem. That little area right there is what I'm stitching along, and so it's really easy to sew a straight seam there. I'm just using that edge of the fabric as my guide. And so once again, always remember to do a little back stitch at the beginning to lock your threads, and then just stitch right along that edge and put the hem in. And so I'll do this for all 3 panels. Okay, this is what the selvage edge of the curtain looks like when it's hanging up. It just really blends right into the lace. So it does make a good finished edge, and you don't have to hem those sides. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that maybe it inspired you and encouraged you to go out and get some fabric and make some curtains for your house. Like I said, it's really not that difficult, and you can do it. So I hope that you will. And I just want to say thank you for being here today. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. And I hope to see you back again next week.